Hi, I'm Wayne Botha. In this video, you will learn how the various Scaled Agile ceremonies fit together and form a comprehensive single calendar view of your release train. Let's get into it.
Right, this video will talk about the PI calendar. Okay, for clarification, let's set the context. The Agile principle at play in this scenario is that working systems are the primary measure of progress. In other words, use this calendar and adopt it to your specific scenarios. I provide this calendar and my experience as a talking point for you to work against, and you can follow it exactly if you want to as well. So the release train engineer or RTE role includes a number of tasks. Primarily, we're focusing on the calendar year. In other words, the release train engineer is responsible to create the calendar for the program increment, publish the calendar, facilitate the various meetings that lead up to the next PI event. For example, the backlog meetings, the art sync meetings. Okay, and so for reference, this is what I am referring to as a typical release train engineer program team setup. Obviously, this is based on the Scaled Agile framework. What we have here is a program team at the top, consisting of various people such as the release train engineer and solution architect and whoever else you need at the program level for your release train. Then we have the Scrum teams. Each Scrum team obviously has a Scrum Master, a product owner, and various team members. And you can have as many Scrum teams as you need on your release train. The reason I've specifically broken out the Scrum leads in this slide is that the Scrum Master and product owner need to interface with the program team as well as with their Scrum teams. And so at a high level, this is a sample program increment calendar. In this case, we've got 4 sprints of working sprints, and the 5th sprint is really a buffer zone so that you can either do planning for the next PI and the teams can wrap up the work that they haven't finished in that program increment. In my experience, I found that the 5th sprint is always used to catch up with the other work that has not been completed during the program increment and also to prepare for the next PI. However, I specifically highlighted that there is an ongoing monitoring of PI objectives. This is work that the release train engineer must focus on. So not only is the release train engineer responsible to monitor the ongoing activities in the current PI, but the release train engineer is also responsible to ensure that the next PI event is planned, prepared, and goes smoothly. So for reference, this is a typical sprint calendar for the release train engineer. I'm starting off with a blank calendar so you can see how pieces fit together, and then I will layer in the various meetings that need to come in. One thing I will point out is that in my experience, it works best to start sprints on a Wednesday and finish on the following Tuesday. The reason is that Monday and Tuesday, people are getting back to the office. If you've got offshore teams, they're busy syncing up with the work that they've did over the weekend. And so Monday and Tuesday is nearly always a catch-up day, and it's never a good day to start a sprint. And so the first thing to populate on the release train engineer's view of the program is the teamwork. So all that a release train engineer really needs to know that is within the program, teams have a kickoff on the Wednesday and they finish on the following Tuesday. The release train engineer does not need to be involved in the activities of each Scrum team. This is where it gets important for a release train engineer. The release train engineer will schedule and hold the Scrum of Scrum meetings and possibly the PO sync meetings. I say that because depending on the train and exactly how the various players are fitting together, the release train engineer might schedule one meeting for all of the Scrum Masters and product owners as a single art sync meeting a number of times a week. Or alternatively, you might structure the program such that your Scrum of Scrums is held with the Scrum Masters and the PO Sync is held with the product owners. I will point out that you sometimes need a specific review meeting with each team. In this case, I scheduled it for 11 a.m. for the program lead team to meet with a specific team. For example, we'll meet with team number one on Thursdays and review the work. Sometimes some programs require that the program lead team meet with an individual Scrum lead and product owner in order to review the work that's going on for their team. So the ceremonies that I've highlighted on this slide focus on program to Scrum team lead communication. Another aspect of the release train engineer task is to ensure that communication takes place across the program lead team. In this case, I've scheduled meetings for the program review and planning and specifically for PI prep. This makes sure that when we get to the next program increment event, the backlogs are ready, they've been prioritized, we have business values assigned. The next step for you is to look at your calendar as a release train engineer. What can you schedule on a recurring basis so that you can free up your time? One of the benefits of a scaled agile program is that everyone is aware of the cadence of the meetings and the expectations for each ceremony, which then frees up the release train engineer to focus on other items and not be bogged down in scheduling meetings all the time. So when you look at your calendar, what can you schedule to free up your time? If you don't already have a PI calendar view for your program, then go ahead and create one. It helps to communicate with all your stakeholders and also across the program. And surprisingly, once you put all your ceremonies into a single view, you'll see if there's overlap or discrepancies. For example, if people are required to attend two meetings at the same time. And finally, you can always go to scaledagileframework.com for more details. I hope that this information is helpful to you, and thank you for watching. Hey, and so in this presentation, we'll be talking about where I left my notes. That's what we'll be talking about.